Alright, here we are with Magical Girl Raising Project Episodes Sigma, Volume 17. Looking at when I last did one of these, it was, dear goodness, 6 months ago. I've been quite busy with various projects, so just kind of drifted away. I was right in the middle of this volume when I drifted away from the series, but the anime for Restart got announced. Did a couple of videos on those as well. Um, and I did want to get back into the series and just finish it off, so I'm fully prepared for whatever comes next. Finally, I got a chance when I'm on vacation, really thoroughly enjoy the rest of the series, so I'll actually be recording Volume 17 and Volume 18 today. But for now, let's just focus on Episode Sigma, Volume 17. This is the last of the side stories. And there were some pretty good ones in here. So let's just get into it. I'm gonna actually start off with the cover. I want to make a comment on it. It has Piffle and Hardcore Alice. I think that's really neat because they're both magical girls who do everything in their power to protect another magical girl at their own detriment. Alice, Hardcore Alice is protecting Snow White with everything she wants, with everything she has. She doesn't really know how to do things the right way because, she's very new to the whole thing. But her earnestness is very palpable, and I think it's great. Piffle devises all of her plans in efforts to protect Shadow Girl. Um, and, just her meticulousness in that sense is also quite quite the read in any form that they show up in. So I just think pairing these two together is pretty clever on, the cover. And wonderful art, of course, by Madarino. Once again, these two look really pretty here. So, yeah, let's just get into the stories here. The first one is The Way of the Archfiend. This one was a pretty comical one. And keep in mind, I read volume 17 over the span of 6 months. So, if something is a bit inaccurate, that's my blame. I'm to blame for that. But I think I do remember these stories fairly well. The Way of the Archfiend, if I recall, is Archfiend Pam had written a book because the PR department was like, do this. And I actually think The Way of the Archfiend is the name of the book. Thing is, she didn't get a copy of the book because it was all digital, I think. So the whole thing is trying to teach Archfiend Pam, like the Archfiend Cram School. They're trying to teach her how to use technology and, all that. And it involves Styler, Mimi, and a couple of other Archfiend Cram schoolgirls, and it's just pretty comical. Archfiend Pam's continuing trait of this not being good at technology at all and destroying any tech she touches is pretty funny. And I think the excuse me, I think the side story ends with her being told to write another book, and then everyone just freaking out because they're gonna have to go through this whole arduous process all over again. I think she might have gotten just a physical book uh, to just top it all off and put that situation under a lid. But I always love the goofy side of Archfiend Pam because she's this imposing figure, this very prestigious existence within the Magical Girl Racing Project world. So having her human side come out a bit more is always quite nice. The next one was Magical Test of Courage. Probably the most boring one. I think it was like Ruler's birthday party. The Twin Peaky Angels were doing karaoke or something, at the old temple, the abandoned temple. Snow White, rather Koyuki, and her two friends did a test of courage around there. They heard some sounds, they freaked out, ran away. Koyuki has a slight dilemma of, man, a magical girl shouldn't be running away. But she did, and that's about it. But cool to at least get the art. The art has Team Ruler as well as Top Speed and the Nemerim throwing a birthday party for Ruler, and we get a little bit of that more tender side of Ruler here too, which I always love seeing, and I really like to emphasize that in the side stories. So that's wonderful, and I'm really glad that Ruler got a little more of that scene. Next one's a wonderful one: Magical Girl versus Shark. So this was one of the more lengthy ones, but it was really, really nice in the weirdest way. It starts off with Magical Lloyd, and Magical Lloyd, she's always trying to bring in more money because she's homeless and broken. Is just that type of person. So with her random special item a day ability, she gets like a black orb or something. This weird orb that can make an animal super intelligent. And give it, I think, magical power. So she plans to use it on a koi fish to sell it or make it do stuff for her, yada yada. However, instead of that, we get a fat greenling. I had no idea what a fat greenling was. It is apparently a real fish. Its name speaks for itself. It is a green fish that happens to be quite plump. And it's pretty unremarkable, at least to Magical Lloyd. So, we got this really, I don't know why, but I laughed when I saw this. We get this really funny piece of art where Magical Lloyd's human form is looking into the bucket where she has the fat greenling. And she just has this concerned look through like the ripples of the water. And I don't know, it's found really funny. It's probably my favorite piece of art from like the goofier side stories in the series. It's just, I don't know. But the fat greenling takes, consumes the orb, and it does gain that magical power and sentience and like proper thought and everything. So when Magical Lloyd is insulting it while it's in the bucket, it kind of builds up a grudge and kind of jumps up and slaps Magical Lloyd in the face with its tail and then swims off into the ocean, never to be seen again. Except that energy was so small for that body. I'm pretty sure the story describes this. It was so small for that body that it just kept zooming forward, all the way into a completely different ocean where a shark happened to devour it. Now, once that shark devoured it, it gained the magical power of that fat greenling, and it just so happens, due to the circumstances surrounding its magical, the acquisition of its magical ability, it's basically like Kirby, where it gains the powers of whatever it eats. So that shark is eating things left and right, growing megalodon size, just completely way too big for a shark, while also retaining the traits of like a lobster it ate, or an octopus it ate. And you get this later CG, I said CG, like it's a visual novel or a game or something, but you get this later pieces of art in the story where it has the wings of a seagull, the pinches of a lobster. It's just this menace. You actually see the shark. Now, you must be wondering, how does the shark come to play? Well, when it ate the fat greenling, it inherited the grudge of the fat greenling, which hated Magical Lloyd. So went all the way back to End City, where Magical Lloyd was housed, busted up the port, and then of course the nearby magical girls are going to fight it. So we have Weiss Winter Prison, Sister Nana, and La Pucelle, a fun trio there, fighting this shark. The battle scene is really interesting. It goes on under the water a few times and into the sky because of the wings, and they're actually getting pretty beat up. It's a real tough battle. I like seeing Sister Nana use her ability for someone else. She used it on La Pucelle, and La Pucelle was able to grow her sword about 33 feet, I think, and just use it in really creative ways. So that was really cool. Of course, Weiss Winter Prison using walls as like a way to build a bridge and run across the air is also really cool. This entire thing was a mix of goofy, but also like really like nail biting and with stakes, and it was like a really good story. If there wasn't another specific story in this batch, it probably would have been just my favorite one. But Weiss went to prison, and La Pucelle do go ahead and defeat the shark, and went to prison. We get a pretty cute tidbit with her and La Pucelle. Went to prison when, if you remember all the way back to that other side story with Sister Nana and went to prison, where went to prison took her out to the movies, and this is just when Sister Nana had just gained her magical girl form, right? Um, she was, I think it was like a zombie thriller. She took Nana to, and she was just all about it. Well, we find out that Winter Prison is a big fan of those corny thriller movies, and she is a bit tense, a little bit. She did not realize that sharks are real creatures. Um, so, bit of a airhead moment for Winter Prison there, but I love seeing more of her character because I knew there was more to her that I could have really liked. So I think she's gonna get a boost above Shepherd's Pie. Uh, maybe around Gekukujo and Psycho level. No, you know what? Yeah, I think you finally deserve the A, girl. I think you do. Yeah, let's put you there. I don't know. It's just thinking about that, and she drags along La Pucelle to watch a shark movie, thinking she's also into it because she knew what sharks were. Because again, she doesn't realize that sharks are actually real creatures, and it's another thing of like, oh, Sota can't de-transform when he's La Pucelle because he's a boy and yada yada. So there's a pretty funny dynamic there. I thoroughly enjoyed Went to Prison, the side story, and Magical Lloyd, and the Fat Greenling. What would have been quite interesting is if a human caught and ate that Fat Greenling, and then they gained that power. Imagine a menace of a magical girl having a grudge against Magical Lloyd for no reason. Like, imagine? Ooh, that would have been crazy. Or if the shark ate like a human, and it could transform into a human. Oh, good thing they stopped that, because the implications are kind of wild if it went on its rampage. Next up is the Magical Girl in Black and the Lady Knight. So another La Pucelle focus, but actually more of a focus on Hardcore Alice. This is just when Hardcore Alice had recently gotten her Magical Girl form. So she, went ahead and was just learning about things. She tries to help a truck, that is stuck in a pothole or a ditch in the road or something like that. But she ends up getting stuck inside. Said truck gets completely moved over to a different district of N City where La Pucelle happens to be. Throughout this story, La Pucelle meets like the slightly, I wouldn't even say slightly, the quite beat up magical girl form of Alice, even headless, and Alice is just trying to meet her and say hello and provide help to the situation. There's even like an avalanche that goes on. It says Sota being scared of something scary, but it's a pretty fun story, and I like that Alice's problem with verbalizing what she wants to say kind of creates that misunderstanding. But I think, if I'm recalling correctly, they did come to an understanding eventually on what the situation was, both of them. So, it was a nice little happy ending wrapped up neat in a bow. So that was pretty neat. Next up is Festival Day, and wouldn't you know it, Magical Lloyd shenanigans again. So I guess Magical Lloyd's, item of the day is that she could, whatever the item was, it would be whatever the person most desired in that moment, right? So you got all the magical girls from Unmarked in this N-City festival, and you just have them seeing this item. So Sister Nana sees a really good baked potato, and I think, goodness, does Tama see a bucket and shovel from her childhood? because of course Tama, she loves digging, so you have that kind of innocent thing about her. Um, let's see. I think Sota sees a really like rare cutie Altair and dark cutie, like were they holding hands or something on like a print or a banner or something. It's really rare cutie healer merch because he's obsessed with magical girl merch like that. Who else? I'm just trying to scroll through here. Oh yeah, the twin sisters, the twin Pinky Angels. They see something a little bit different. Swim sees, I think, like a tiara. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Something interesting about this, though, is we see Swim. I mean, we've seen her human form before, but we see her mother. And just a little bit of that interaction with the mother, which I never really expected at all. But I'm not particularly complaining. It was just like a really unexpected interaction, and it just kind of makes me sad that Swim idolized Ruler in the completely wrong way and just caused things to go the way that they did. I don't know if perhaps her mother could have paid more attention to her or what, but I did enjoy seeing that interaction there. And then, goodness, Calamity Mary was really interesting because she saw, was it Ricabelle, which was the magical girl anime that she really liked when she was a child. I think she saw something like that, and of course, because the whole thing is you gotta shoot this thing to get the prize, the item, because it's a festival. They actually had it nailed into the festival. Excuse me, the stand, so no one was getting it. It was just a way for Magical Lloyd and her like uncle friend to make some money. But Calamity Mary, being the sharpshooter that she is, almost knocked it over, I think. So there was that, but we got this weird. I wouldn't say weird, but how should I say this? She had a moment of reminiscing about her daughter and her husband, or her rather ex-husband, where she almost had a moment of clarity. But I mean, it was wrapped in, like her usual, just not being a good person aura. However you would want to describe that. But she had that moment of clarity, and it was really interesting to see. It's the type of thing where you wouldn't want it more from Calamity Mary based on the type of character that she is, but you can appreciate that specific one moment of clarity in this side story because you know that there was perhaps maybe a slight sliver of something there. Not that she's redeemable in any sense of the word at all, but she drinks her problems away as usual, I'm pretty sure. So that's how that turned out. It was a story that really. Oh, Ripple was there too. Goodness, did she have something? Was it maybe Magical Girl merch of that one Ninja Magical Girl? Goodness, I forget what Ripple had, but I do know she had something too. But she actually ended up being distracted by Tama tripping on wires because Tama being Tama. But yeah. And of course, Magical Lloyd comes back at the end and is like, haha, we made all this money. And then the uncle asks her, so what do you see when you see this prize item? And she's all cheeky and flashes a smile with a finger to her lips, like saying, shush, that's a secret. So, Okay, next. Story here's a doozy. But it's a doozy in the best way. Snow White Raising Project. This is what happened between Unmarked and Restart. This is such an important story that's been released before, like, years ago, like, chronologically, right? But they're showing it in the local, in, like, the light novel release right before Frederica's big finale in Red, right? And I think I honestly prefer it like that. Now, there is perhaps value in reading it in between, you know, Restart and Unmarked. It probably just makes you understand the Snow White side of the story a bit more, as well as Limited and, you know, all that. But I really liked reading it in Volume 17 because it's in first-person perspective. Now, never have we gotten first-person perspective from a main character of the series. We've gotten it from a random detective. We've gotten it from Chihiro, you know, Tama's friend. Later on, we get it from Kinninomiya in the same volume, which is like someone who was observing Piffle at their school. But this is the only time where we see where we see first-person perspective from a magical girl herself, and it's from Frederica, which is perfect. This was such a key and necessary and amazing insight to what she thought about everything and all of her plans. She had her eye on Snow White from the beginning, right? And you know, she's weird with her hair fetish and everything, so she has folders with people's hair, and she uses it to use her crystal ball and everything. But she observes Snow White and she guides her in a way that will suit herself. She also toys with Ripple's emotions and makes her serve her own interest, as she continuously does throughout the entire series. But just like the inner perspective of Frederica during this is so good. Her thoughts on Cranberry and Snow White and Ripple, and just how she's going to set everything up for the future events. That inner perspective, especially that first person's perspective, makes Frederica so good. Honestly, like, it's just so good. She has to move to SS. She's weird. She's just completely self-serving, and I'll get more into that in Red. But either way, whether it was here or in Red, she was going to be SS. She's just too important of a character, too developed of a character. It's perfect. I like how in this story she was guiding Snow White from a remote location, because the minute Snow White entered her range and read her thoughts, it's over. Snow White would know immediately what Frederica was thinking, and that's exactly what happened. She met Ripple thinking Snow White wouldn't be there, but Snow White came back because, a little slight misunderstanding on Frederica's part, and she lost. And then that's how she was sealed. So, yeah. Snow White Raising Project, perfect. I actually like the fact that I read it before the finale of Snow White's story, because I think having that extra bit of insight added clarity to her previous actions in a way that could only be done if it's read after everything else. Not to disparage the proper reading order of, like, release or, of chronological or things like that, because there's value in that too. Like, in the Restart anime, I hope they animate Snow White Raising Project, because for anime watchers who won't get all of the inner thoughts of all the characters, all of the details regarding everything about their abilities, and how they feel about their transformations, and just little small details that are really key to their characters, you just can't do that in anime. And maybe you could, but with the type of, like, I guess we only have one season to go off of, but going off of Unmarked, there's a lot of points that just didn't get hit, or maybe couldn't get hit, And while I have hope that Restart will be 2 core and 24 episodes and include side stories and everything, um, if nothing else, I do think Snow White Racing Project needs to be done then. Because having it as a setback all the way in the event in like 30 years where we get this entire series animated, having that done in anime form all the way later just doesn't seem right. Before reading it, especially if you read this series continuously, I think it's expertly placed. It was just a really enjoyable read. Best one in the book, but that was kind of like a landslide because it's Snow White Racing Project, right? Like, I don't know how you're going to compete with that. Next one was really super ultra cute. Shufflin learns to dance. It's just my girl, CQ Angel Hamuel, who I just really like for no reason, teaching Shufflin 2 how to dance. It's actually the very first time she got assigned the Shufflin 2 unit. And this was a way for her to coordinate with them and just really learn how to command them. And we got this really cute full color art of like Hamuel being like a idol fan with the headband and the sweat and sparkling eyes and just going, yeah. And he got these really cute Shufflins striking these poses. And I don't know, this is a really cute story. She taught him how to dance and they danced. And it was really just like a PR stunt from the Osk faction because, Puck Puck was releasing videos and we all know how Puck Puck videos are where she does one thing and everyone loves her because of her ability. The Osk faction was trying to compete against that. Though, because it was Shufflin's, all the comment was just a feedback loop, an echo chamber of the same unit of Shufflin's complementing each other. So that was pretty funny. But we got cute Shufflin and cute Hamuel. So, you know what? Rare content I didn't expect. Hey, thanks. That's good for me. Oh, this one's really good. The art stream Cram School's Christmas Party from Hell starred Lette of all people. Yeah. I didn't expect this. I really did not expect this at all. But this takes place right after Unmarked. And, it's basically when Snow White is in maximum depressed mode. And Ripple takes her to a party. Now, we don't really get their perspective. This is all from Lette's perspective. Lette goes around, she meets, like, Lady Proud, and Umbrain, and they debate about, like, if magical cake is made by a magical girl, can you gain weight from that? And because, Lady Proud's blood creates alcohol that can actually get magical girls drunk. And, Lady Proud, she's Lady Proud. She's being goofy like that. But Lette talks with Archie and Pam. She talks with Oro, Kofuria's friend. She talks with Maya. And you know what? For Maya, we actually get more info. She's going to go above Shepherd's Pie here. We actually get more info on, like, what she thought of Verrico. She was actually really concerned, but she was so, like, traditional and, like, I guess old-minded in her... Yeah, old-minded. I don't know how to word it, but, like, just, I guess, behind the times in how she was, like, raising a disciple that she couldn't see Verrico's full, like, bitterness, I suppose. But Maya has some gap moe here, where she just talks and assumes that she's friends with Lette, and Lette actually finds her pretty annoying. I don't know. There was just that little moment with Maya where she's just, like, concerned and kind of almost bragging about her disciple Verrico. I just find it neat. It made me want to see more of her, though we will not be seeing more of her, unfortunately. But yeah. Really, Maya, John Shepherd's Pie, and Agri are interchangeable. Though Maya right now is taking top place just because of this. So I did find that pretty interesting. Who else? We had Cockle here, who was doing guard duty. As reference, Kako was the cockroach magical girl who tried to sneak up on Hearts Pam in that one side story with the Hell Survival Games. She was also the same magical girl that got completely crippled in Queens and probably died after trying to sneak in. So rip her. Twin Dragons Panos is here because, of course. Even Cutie Altair, I think, made an appearance. I just forget what exactly she did. But she did talk with Lette or have some sort of confrontation with Lette. Yeah. Let's see. Styler Mimi had an appearance after the festival. But most importantly, back to Ripple and Snow White. Lette met them or saw them. And we just get this really insightful and thoughtful evaluation of Ripple, but most importantly Snow White. The whole reason why Lette is at this Archfiend cram school Christmas party or whatever is because I guess it was a rumor that, right, Archfiend Pam couldn't make it, right, because of the her department. Archfiend Pam couldn't make it, so Lette went in her place to make sure nothing went wrong because, it's an Archfiend cram school. Who knows what the heck they're gonna do. So she's actually talking around to see who organized this, right? And meeting Snow White and her had a brief conversation. Snow White assured her that everything was fine and it was not done out of malice. And then that's where we get that thoughtful evaluation from Lette. And the art here is really pretty. Lette smiling as she sees Ripple and Snow White holding hands and moving forward. Man, I really wanted to see Lette and Snow White interact in Queens. And I didn't know I wanted that until reading this story. But it made my heart hurt, man. Lette, you're such an interesting character. The Duchess. Yeah, you kind of you are so much better than Grimheart as an incarnation character. My goodness, but I don't know. It was just a really fun story from her perspective, and that insight with Snow White and Ripple made me like her a bunch more. It's hard to have her breach, all of these amazing characters. Man, there's so many good characters in the series. It's hard to organize them. Just know that I really enjoyed that part of the story and just the story in general. Okay, so this next one is actually where I slacked off the most. The young Princess Nozemi Himeno. You will be thinking, wait, Kurukuru Hime, one of your favorite characters from Limited? What the heck are you doing slacking off on a story about her? I wish I could tell you, but I finally breached the wall and just kept reading the rest of the volume after I finally made it through this story. And it was cute. It involved Nozemi's complex about looking very childish. And we actually get a lot of backstory about her younger years, which is great. She's always been the mascot of her friend group, weirdly young looking and short, and just because of her genes with her mom and everything. And she always found it odd, or she never found it odd because she was pampered, She was the little sister to everyone. But as she grew up and exited her comfort zone, there was just a continuous thing of, oh, wait, I'm the weird one. And she's always trying to act more adult-like, and that's why we see her like that in Limited. When she gets labeled monster in Limited by the kids in the beginning of the book, that complex stems from the information provided in the story. So I think that's really neat to see. Not for her, of course. It's quite troubling. But she ends up going to a seminar about this, except she mistakes the location and ends up just at a kindergarten playdate, but she looks so young that she kind of fits in. Turns out Noko was there, Not kindergarten, my goodness, elementary school. It's like 6th grade. Noko was there, and Noko's having the time of her life. Her ability wrapped up everyone in it, including Nozomi. And then Nozomi gets caught and gets real embarrassed. And then Noko's having this whole apology session in her head, and then everyone starts apologizing. So it's another it's another thing where Noko accidentally just practically ruins someone's day, right? Where with her emotions by accident. He did that with Detect Bell with the camping trip, and now we have it here with Kuru Kuru Hime. But what I really like about this story, though, is primarily just the first half where Kuru Kuru Hime Nozomi, we get more of why she had such a complex about that and why she wanted to do her best to seem like a reliable adult to the middle schoolers. So I really appreciate that insight into her. Let's see, moving forward a little bit, keeping it going. Next up, is it Kinunomiya time? The Schoolyard Observer? I think it might be. Let me just check the story order here. Let's see. Scrolling. Yes, the Schoolyard Observer. Okay, yeah, this one, was pretty interesting. Another random side character's perspective on a magical girl. Kinunomiya is in the same class as Shadowgale and Piffle. She's very percentage based in how she calculates how she spends her time observing Piffle. We just get this whole thing of how she blends in with the rich and dainty girls and just tries to get closer to Piffle that way because she thinks it will raise her social standing. This is also in first person perspective, I should add, like the detective and like Chihiro for Tama. So, there's all that. And she's just doing her thing. And then Mamori, Shadow Girl, catches her and she's like, "Don't get too close to Piffle. I see you observing her. You will regret it if she notices you and takes interest in you." And then Kinunomiya then puts all of her attention on Shadowgale, and that's basically his story. Now, I'm vastly underselling Kinunomiya's character and just her strange, detail and how she approaches it all. But I don't know, it's a pretty entertaining story. I liked it for a side character. It doesn't beat Chihiro's story, but it's probably second place with the detective being third. But it's pretty entertaining. We actually get an illustration of Kinunomiya briefly with Madorino's special bonus illustration. We have Kanoe, which is Piffle's human form, just being Kanoe. And then in the bushes staring is a girl with a bob cut. And that's Kinunomiya just observing Piffle. So, interesting how we got her human form, but we didn't get a full Chihiro. We only have her hand patting Tama's head. But I wanted a full Chihiro, and maybe Lapis Lazuline's friend, Blue Comet's friend, that had her memories erased. Who else? Yuka Henmi, that'd be cool to see, the co-worker of Ruler. Things like that. In any case, the CG here is when Mamori, human form, leans over Kinunomiya and is just being really genuine with her in her warning about Piffle taking an interest. So next up, Class 2F's box lunch competition. Yeah, Class 2F. The girls from Black, White, Red. It was just cute because you got Adelheid, Lillian, Kumi Kumi, and Mephistopheles doing their own thing because they saw Princess Lightning, a glutton that she is, eating, I think, was it a rice ball bigger than her head? Because, of course. And they're like, we gotta make the best lunchboxes. So, Kumi Kumi runs around to every member of the elite guard and is like, how do I do this? And then she's so tired after doing that, she falls asleep. And wouldn't you know it, full color illustration, we see Nemarine with Kumi Kumi and a few weirdos. Now, I say weirdos with love. This is actually a link to Magical Girls in Dreamland, which, if I believe, took place around or after Joker's, where Nemarine pulled in Snow White from the real world, as well as others, and, mixed it up and all that. Point is, we see more of Nemarine's scary power. However, we see kind of altered forms of 3 characters from Unmarked. First one is Calamity Mary has now become beautiful Calamity Mary. Looking more into her, she's Calamity Mary, but significantly nicer. Not at all a drunkard or Yakuza or mean in any way. Still a bit of spunk. And for some reason, has bigger breasts. Girl, do your own thing. Have your own preferences. Cool. Next, we have Ideal Sister Nana, who is Sister Nana, but quite weighty. She's plump. She's hefty. She's got weight on her. And then Ideal Vice Winter Prison, who speaks and acts and sparkles like a noble white knight that will protect the princess. Now, beautiful Calamity Mary is seemingly made in the image of how Nemarine wants her to be. She actually made an appearance in the first episode's volume, now that I'm thinking about it, because she called her beautiful Calamity Mary there too, where, was it Wonder Dream, where Masked Wonder was trained under Nemarine? So this is actually beautiful Calamity Mary's second appearance. Or third. I'm assuming she appeared in Magical Girls in Dream Wonderland. These two, the Ideals. Ideal Sister Nana is big and hefty because Weiss Winter Prison thinks that is the Ideal Sister Nana. Which, funnily enough, gives context to that one side story where they first met at the college. And Sister Nana had just gained her Magical Girl form from the game Magical Girl Racing Project. So we know we know Weiss Winter Prison likes her girls big. She likes them big. She likes them chunky. You know what? Respect. You do you, girl. More power to you. And I like that she loves Nana for who she is on the inside rather than just worrying about her weight and all that. On the other side, though, you have Sister Nana wanting this idealized, princely Winter Prison. I cannot defend Sister Nana the more I know about her. I know she's vain and she's kind of like affected by her own, how she thinks people perceives her, but the genuine love from Winter Prison in all aspects of her devotion is so endearing. And it's with Sister Nana, who's all vain and like, she's flawed. I'm sure there's some deep, true love there. But she wants a prince, right? She wants this heavenly, noble, idealized love, rather than an endearing and warm one, which I just can't stand behind, So, it's cool that there are ideal versions and that Nemarine knew enough about those two to even create them in the first place. Funny that Kumi Kumi ended up meeting the 4 of them. But, it was just Kumi Kumi went ahead and met them, and they ended up stealing a bunch of things from a certain place, which I'll get to help Kumi Kumi with her food. Although, because it was all in a dream, it didn't even matter. Kumi Kumi lost her part in the competition. Oops. But, back to Nemarine real quick. Unfortunately, it seems like her magic power is draining. She's, dare I say, aging. Almost as is she's kind of, she forgets her name. She forgets who she is, what she's doing, what she does. It's almost giving me like an elderly patient vibe, you know? And the ideal Nana and Winter Prison, as well as the beautiful Calamity Mary, are kind of like her caregivers now. So, it seems eventually even Dream Nemarine will fully fade away, which is sad. You know, she doesn't live forever in dreams, I suppose. It makes me sad for her. It broke my heart a little bit. But she's doing well at the moment. As of Black, she's doing fine and well. So, you know, good for her. Next up, goodness. Thunder General Adelheid. Did she do anything? I don't know. Let me see. Kumi did that. Yeah. Oh, Mephistopheles went to drop or to raid a certain place, right? But how do I say? Goodness, I suppose she just ended up in the wrong part of whatever facility she was trying to raid. It was like a library, because you know who was there? Pastel Mary. Excuse me, Francesca, possessed by Pastel Mary. She did not get separated after a breakdown. So you have this clumsy, you know, Pastel Mary, Francesca, talking with Mephistopheles. Basically, what happens is, you know, she's still on that. Did you drop the gold axe or the silver axe? As like her first line she says to someone. But then she becomes Pastel Mary and, you know, clumsiness ensues, right? Mephistopheles, though she makes a regular lunch, she does in fact learn how to cook with axes. And you know, being stuck as Francesca, I guess you would need to learn how to use those axes, wouldn't you, Pastel Mary? So congrats on you for learning how to wield them. I think that would be pretty impressive, to put it lightly. Let's see, who else? Classical Lillian. Oh, this one is really interesting. Classical Lillian discovered Keek, like the recordings or remnants of the Keek incident, and she found recordings of Petchka. And she was watching Petchka just because she made boxed lunches, right? And, you know, Petchka's food is always uber delicious. But she ended up getting wrapped up in the story between Petchka and, was it Nino Mia, the boy she was in love with? And ended up, like, really emotional and crying. And by the time the competition rolled around, she was barely her usual self, just, you know, just dealing with the pure sadness of what happened to Petchka. And honestly, I agree, girl. I agree. Adelheid, I don't think she did anything in particular, but because Kumi ended up not having a lunch because, you know, it was all a dream, all the magical girls put together a lunch for Kumi, and that ended up being the winner because, you know, woo, love, peace, joy, and magical box lunches, right? Next up, Queen's Preflop. Goodness, this involved Puck. Yes, involved Puck just, going to, like, the very delicious chocolate fair or something, where she meets Shadow Gale and Piffle, right? But she disguises herself as Chocolate Granite or something like that, where she's in a completely different form just because she wanted to go out. And, you know, you got, like, the three sisters looking for her and yada yada. But she meets Shadow Gale. And Shadow Gale Now this is interesting. Shadow Gale actually fixes her magical phone because Puck Puck is so strong that she breaks hers. And Shadow Gale fixing that magical phone is what got Puck Puck's attention. It seems so casual on the surface. But when you think about it, that explains the reason why Puck Puck knew about Shadow Gale and why she sought out to capture Shadow Gale and used her for the operation in Queens. A little interaction like this, right? And that's crazy. And she's like, the description of the paragraphs here are all around just going about how Puck Puck finds Shadow Girl cute, and the movement of her delicate fingers whirling around, is what impressed her rather than the magic. So when, Chocolate Granite, aka Puck Puck, walks up with Shadow Gale to Piffle, Piffle immediately notices the problem, and she's like, Shadow Gale, don't do that, because that wasn't someone basic like you thought it was. The movements, how expensive the clothes really were, all that analysis, you could have been in danger. Don't, do this and that. And, this is how Piffle is. She does it with more noble prestige and, lightly reprimanding her attendant. But Piffle's worries was very founded because Queens happened. It's crazy. One little interaction at the very delicious chocolate fair is what got Puck Puck to, keep Shadow Gale in her mind and then devise this whole plan with, everything that went down in Queens. I love little things like that. This series has done this a few times where they make little connections that just make you go, oh my goodness. That's like crazy. Crazy. But yeah, that was Queen's pre-flop. Yeah, for sure. Goodness, was that the last one? Just gonna check to make sure. Been talking so passionately, my throat is just dead. Let's see. Yeah, that was the last one. Okay, so thoroughly enjoyable side story volume. For the last one, there was some really strong stories, some nice connections. You know how it be. Episode Sigma did a good job. Had Snow White Racing Project, had the Shark, had the Queen's pre-flop. Box Lunch, Competition, Lette, Nozomi Insight. Overall spread, pretty great. For it leading into Red, it was quite the wonderful finale there of the side stories. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though I read it over 6 months. But I think I don't know if it's a testament to my memory or a testament to the writing, perhaps both. But I do think I recalled it all pretty well. It was just thoroughly enjoyable. I always enjoy these side stories because even having just a little bit more of characters, right? Because in a series as big as this, where you have to move the main plot forward, there's always going to be something you miss with the characters. I even felt that in Red, but I'll get that in Red as well. I'll get to it when I get to Red, rather. But yeah, it was just good stuff. And I did say I was going to record both videos today, but my voice is kind of dying. So you know what? Tomorrow's another day. However, for now, episode Sigma was thoroughly enjoyable. And if I were to ask one thing, perhaps two things from this, justice to the fat greenling, and I want Chocolate Granite to get an illustration, please, Madarino. Am I a little greedy for asking that? Yeah, probably.